right, welcome to the Fuzz Club. Today we're talking about Devil's Witches, their new album in all her forms. I've heard lots and lots about this album. It's already on a lot of end of the year lists I'm seeing, so I'm excited to dive into it a little bit. Before we get started, we have a special guest. Why don't we go around and introduce ourselves real quick before we get rolling? Pat, do you want to lead us off?
Sure. I'm Pat. I'm the editor of Monster Riff, where you can find all sorts of weekly articles on new records, interviews, and all of that kind of fun stuff.
Andy?
I'm Andy. I play bass in the King's Pistol, and I also play with Devil's Witches when he allows me to play on his music. I run the King's Pistol Instagram page, which is mainly cats and alcohol and records I buy. So it's full of good content.
I love it. Kris.
I'm Kris from the band Aawks.
Eddy.
I'm Eddy. I play guitar in the Aiwass and bass in Lords of the Opium Church.
The man
I'm Blake.
Blake.
I'm Blake. I'm from Aiwass.
Right on. All right, so we're talking about In All Her Forms by Devil's Witches. This was like a very ambitious album, I felt. Like I knew the Devil's Witches a little bit before this as kind of a straight like doom band, I think. And this one was big. There's lots of different things going on. There's lots of different kind of styles and everything to it. So where do you want to start with this one? Andy, do you want to give us some background on the Devil's Witches? You've kind of worked with them before, and where do we start with Devil's Witches?
Well, yeah, I'm happy. When he's, I was lucky to kind of hear the first demos that he had going for this album when he started working on it. And I think I know the reason it took him so long is because he felt there was a lot of pressure and expectation following up from Velvet Magic. Which is fair enough, but he definitely had no intention of releasing Velvet Magic 2 because I think that would have just been too easy. And I guess he's a lot older now than he was when he released Velvet Magic. I'll get my words out.
When was that? Do you remember when he released that?
What, Velvet Magic? Oh,
yeah,
I can't remember.
It was 2017.
Yeah,
okay, 2017.
Yeah.
And obviously, that he's done the Covenant of the Ultra Riff, he did the Record Store Day release, he did like the Christmas single, but he was reluctant he wasn't sure whether he was going to put this album together or get it finished, but thankfully he did, because I think it's absolutely astounding piece of work. I think it's brilliant. And I'm glad it isn't Velvet Magic 2. I think that would have just been a bit, well, I don't think it had been a true representation of what Devil's Witches is about his music. He likes to mix it up a bit, doesn't he? So
yeah. I mean, there's kind of equal parts doom and then like almost like a loungy jazz type of thing and like atmospheric type of things to it. I guess it's in 4 parts. I don't know if Andy, maybe you have the vinyl already, but it's split up into 4 parts, each side of 2 vinyl. It's split into Maiden, Mistress, Mother, and Matriarch, which I guess kind of has different themes to like 2 or 3 or 4 songs each. But I don't think it's necessary to know that going into it. I didn't really feel like much of a shift throughout the songs into core parts or anything, but just thought that was interesting.
I've only got it on the test pressing, and I've never listened to it in the right order, because on the test pressing it doesn't say which side is which. So I now know that side 3 is my favourite side, because I think that's got Smoke and Sorcery on it, and I think for me that is one of the standout tracks, because for me I think the mellow stuff is more mellow and the heavier stuff is far heavier, than he's done before. But for me it's the mellow ones that really jumped out at me, and Magic Mama as well, just because it's as catchy as fuck, isn't it? Really. So,
yeah. Magic Mama is wildly different than a lot of.
If you're not clapping at the end of that, then
yeah, it's kind of got like this like fun, upbeat '90s song to it, and then it ends in like the hand clap and everything. Like it was wildly different than anything else. But also like Blood of the Witch had that little like bells part in between parts of it, kind of acoustic, but also it stops and it's like ding, 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 ding. I just
did ask
like
him what the
everything
whole-
about this album is just
Yeah.
constantly different every time.
I did ask him what the whole concept was about, and he did go. He tried to explain it to me, but honestly, it's in his head. I still, I listen to it from, a musician side and as a fan of the music. The whole sort of concept in his head is mad. It's absolutely crazy for what he wants to sort of portray in it with the artwork, the lyrics, everything. So, and he's happy. And I think that, as a musician, if you're happy putting out your stuff, then fair play, and people seem to be receiving it well, don't they?
They do.
I'd be happy to take a stab at trying to explain it, at least lyrically. I tried to sit down a couple of times and like read through the lyrics with each song, and the way I interpret this album is sort of it's sort of like a story of creation, but the focus is on woman specifically over man, and it's sort of the loss of innocence for women. Like right at the beginning, there's a reference to the story of creation, and then track 2 is like the rape from the eyes of the rapist, and then by the end of it, in like the maiden section, there's an ascension of woman into like her being the source of creation, and her even elevating to like the status of a god in the hymn for the Super Vixen. And I think that's kind of on brand for Devil's Witches, which has always had sort of honor and respect for women beyond sex objects. Like even Porno Witch is like very sexual, but it's like beyond sex. It's like women are people and they deserve to be treated as such. So that there's that character arc for women. From the maiden section to the matriarch section of women as object to women eventually as God.
That's what I
That
was
was
going to say.
an amazing analysis of the lyrics, because
That's
honestly,
exactly what I was thinking.
I didn't dive that deep into it. I just kind of like briefly looked over the lyrics for something we're going to do later on in the podcast. But I was just looking at some of the words going like, this is like a lot of violence and like sexual like tension kind of like weirdness in throughout this album. And then you look at some of the other albums like Porno Witch and all that kind of stuff and go like, I don't know, are people going to be uncomfortable by some of this? Should they be uncomfortable by some of this? But for you to like analyze it in that way, I'm glad that you did.
Oh, thank you.
I think the video he put out for Blood of the Witch, I think he got a bit of a backlash off that as well. But, everyone's going to have their own opinion, aren't they? You're always going to piss somebody off, aren't you? Somewhere along the line, but, it's how you take it, isn't it?
Right.
I've got very low morals.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said I've got very low morals, so I'm not easily offended. So
yeah. I read that he described Velvet Magic as more straightforward and obviously a little bit more like straightforward doom and everything. But he said that while that one kind of addresses a specific moment in time, he wanted this to be more like avant-garde and surrealist. And I felt like that was pretty accurate. Everyone else get a similar vibe from it. I'm sure something similar.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I love both albums personally. Like Velvet Magic, especially when I first got it on vinyl. I don't have In All Our Forms. I think arrives on Monday. I was hoping it would show up today in time for me to show the full array. But I played the fuck out of Velvet Magic. To the point that for a long time I was like, okay, I don't want to hear any Devil's Witches for a minute, because I was obsessed with it. Me and one of my best buds were constantly playing, and especially around the holidays last year. But this one I feel like is much more of a statement, not just because it has a concept behind it and it's divided into 4 sections and things like that. But I feel like what he's doing is really advanced and kind of awe-inspiring with this album.
Yeah.
It's very hard to categorize. So I wouldn't call this necessarily pure doom by any means whatsoever.
I don't think it's a doom album either. Not at all.
there's certainly like
nothing
those
against
moments.
doom music, but there's a lot more to it than just calling it a doom album, isn't there? That's the same with Velvet Magic, though. You know, that's not a doom album, is it, at all?
No, it's got more elements of doom. But I would say that like Devil's Wishes as a whole might be categorized as doom, just because it's hard to find something else for it. Because, you know, I think of like Vietnam era music almost more being in common with Devil's Wishes than Monolord, for example.
A lot of it probably has to do with the imagery, the name, the album titles, all that kind of stuff kind of lend a hand to being categorized as doom. But
yeah,
I found that this one, to me, and we kind of talked about this on a few other episodes of the Fuzz Club, but this one is a full album. It's kind of hard to pick out one song as a single or to put on a playlist or to send to someone. You kind of have to sit down and listen to this as a whole to get the real experience and experience it like it's meant to be.
I think if you sent Magic Mama to someone, they'd expect the whole album to sound like that. It doesn't. You know,
it's a pop song.
Yeah, Magic Mama is probably the most poppy commercial single, as it were. But if you sent them one of the other ones, they'd be like, "What's going on here?" And that's what's good about it, isn't it? You know, you listen to the album in its whole. And bizarrely, I really want to have it on CD because I'm sick of having to get up and turn the record over. So I'm quite looking forward to listening to it in its sort of like entirety on CD. Because it shifts and changes so quick that you don't really know what's coming next. And to me, it's like a good book, isn't it? You want to keep turning the pages and seeing what's going to happen. So.
Sure. Yeah. Eddie?
Yeah, when I first heard Blood of the Witch, that song, I got hooked on it right away, and I couldn't stop listening to it like all day and night. So I shared it with my friends, but I knew the album was just so diverse. I had to share the full album after I sent that song, just so you get the whole idea of what the band is like. Love this band, sure.
I think it's kind of like how, I mean, I'm not comparing these two albums per se, but I guess I am. It's kind of like how with The Wall, you have a few songs that you could hear on the radio, like Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 or Comfortably Numb or something like that. And I think that's where you get like Successive Slidings of Pleasure, Magic Mama, you know, a couple others really stand out. But I feel like you definitely have to listen to this album from start to finish to really get the impact of what is going on.
Totally, yeah.
But for me, before I knew we were even going to review it, I had it on and I was out in the garage just kind of messing around with stuff. And Randy and I were out there listening to the album like pretty loud. And Shadows in the Mirror came on, and it kind of hits really hard at first. And I was like, fuck, this is really good. And then I listened to this, I actually went back and like replayed the song 3 or 4 times in a row because I was really into it, and I read through the lyrics. And I was like so into the song that I actually messaged him. And I was like, just so you know, like, that song is fucking great. And I really dig it. And he sent me back a message pretty quickly saying like, you know, thanks for that, because no one's really said that about that song yet. He's like, I've heard about other songs, but not that one. But for some reason, that was the first one that hit me. And since then, like, there's been other songs that have done the same. And like all good music, I try not to like overdo it because I want to savor it, right? Like when you find something good, you don't want to like wear it out and get too much of that flavor and then end up like Blake where you don't want to hear it again, right? So I've been trying to savor it. But
and just to be clear, I love Velvet Magic again.
Oh yeah.
I burned myself out on that one particular album for about 2 months.
I get it, man. I can do that with stuff all the time. But I'm trying to just not do that so much. Because these days, the way we listen to music, it's so kind of like, it's like candy sometimes. It's just gone. You never get back to it. Where
maybe because you have to because the general consensus is that you have to listen to the whole album. And, you know, even though it's quite a short album, there's a lot going on in there. So, you know, if I was to put it on like you, I wouldn't just stick one side on, listen to 3 songs and then take it off. You know, for me, when I listen to that, I like to sit down, have a glass of wine and listen to it in its entirety and think, right, yeah, I've given it what it deserves almost without, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those albums, and it sounds like he's a little elusive about a lot of things with this band.
He's
I mean,
always elusive.
he doesn't put his own image forward very often. He doesn't even put his own name forward very often. He doesn't describe what he's making or the concept behind it much. It doesn't sound like he talks about lyrics or imagery a whole lot. It kind of leaves it open to the listener, which in this day and age kind of seems unique. I mean, a lot of people are very out there and in the eye line of everyone with social media and stuff. So it's kind of cool and maybe a little refreshing to see him just go like, here's an album. I'm not going to say much about it. Just consume it and think what you want about it.
You know, he'll never play live, so no one will ever get to see him live. And like you say, he doesn't have his face on anything. It's just like he'll drop teasers of bits of artwork, and that's, I think, with Velvet Magic and how he promoted that, was amazing. Because it was all just done off pictures. No one had heard anything, and it's just pictures. And he did a similar thing with that, and it gets people keen, doesn't it? Everyone gets thirsty then, like, wow, because everyone, I would imagine, was expecting, massive 70s doom bags, Vietnam on pictures everywhere, and the artwork is completely different. It's proper photography, loads of thought gone into it, so it's a complete contrast in it. I don't think you can compare Velvet Magic and this at all. It's just so different, isn't it?
Let's
dive into the cover of Lindisfarne.
Say again.
Isn't the cover Lindisfarne? I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not sure.
No, where did he say it was? I can't remember. He said it the other day. He told me where it was, but some mad islands somewhere.
I want to jump into the artwork real quick. Just kind of the progression of a lot of his different singles, albums, all that kind of stuff, because it's all kind of consistent up until this album, which I thought was kind of interesting. So here is the Suck My Hex artwork. Here's the Porno Witch, kind of a vintage vibe. Fuck Agent Orange. Come Play With Me, all very vintage and culty, maybe. Guns, Drugs, and Filthy Pictures. No, I don't remember what this one is called. Of just like
cherry napalm in it, that.
Magic Wand. There's Velvet Magic. Sugar Plum.
That's my bra, that is.
And then you have the new artwork, which doesn't even feature their name, the album title. It's not particularly culty or vintage or anything like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think because of how he did the artwork, because the back cover's got the band name on it, hasn't it? So that's why he pushed for Majestic to do the double gatefold, because he had the idea of he wanted it to look a certain way and stuff with all the artwork, the booklet, everything. And I'm sure Marco was having a fucking nightmare thinking of the cost of it all.
The expense of a double gatefold with a booklet.
Yeah. It was like, and you want me to hire this photographer, and you want me to press 4,000 copies, that's fine. No, your kids aren't getting anything for Christmas, Marco, unless this sells.
Yeah. But I think it's great artwork. I don't know who did the photo or anything like that, but
I can't remember what his name is now. It sounds terrible. But...
I'm checking the Majestic site. I thought it was on here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna check. What's his name, the guy who did it?
Yeah, it's such an interesting departure from the rest of kind of his catalog in terms of just not just the sound, which I feel like, I mean, you can tell it's still Devil's Witches, but there are definitely some extreme departures from, I guess, what I would normally think of as the Devil's Witches sound.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fucking hard to characterize.
The photographer. Oh, sorry, Blake.
Ian West, in it, the guy who did it.
Okay. I mean, having what looks to be, a modern photograph is a huge change. It doesn't have the aged kind of 70s feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
it's like he's saying, hey, this is something different, and you need to approach it as an album by itself, and not think of it as paired with anything else per se.
I think it puts it, for anyone who was expecting Velvet Magic 2, very instantly from just the artwork alone, you would think it was from a completely different artist altogether, wouldn't you? So it's almost like, forget the past. This is where I'm at now. This is what I'm doing, and hopefully people will dig it.
Yeah, he was able to manage those expectations pretty early on, I think.
When I first seen that album cover, I assumed that might have been the band, like photos of the members of the band. I didn't even realize it was a one-person band, like a concept. From
I think it was late at night. You sent some message into the group chat, and I was like, no, it's just one guy.
I was like, that's got me live footage of this band. I'm just getting like really obsessed with them. One person around.
Is there anything on this album that you think it's missing? Is there anything that it's missing, or
me on the bass mainly?
There you go.
Mainly just me playing the bass. Other than that, it's fine.
What happened there, Andy? Why'd you get fired?
The reason I kind of knew I wouldn't be on this because this was his baby. This was his idea, and to get me involved obviously means I have an opinion, and I might alter certain things. The stuff we've worked on together in the past has been, a sort of two-way kind of thing. He'll send me a track, I'll put whatever, bass line to it and stuff, and we kind of work out on that. Whilst this was massive, I wouldn't have been able to sort of commit myself to it, I don't think. And he needed to do it for himself, so I never had any expectations to be on this album at all. I would have been very surprised if he'd have asked me. So yeah.
So did he play like bass and stuff on it then?
Yeah, he does absolutely everything you hear on that album is in.
Does he play drums or does he program them?
They're programmed, they are. Which God knows how to do, because I use GarageBand and I can't even, I use Anders, the heavy metal drummer, for almost everything on GarageBand. So how someone programs them is beyond me.
It's not fun.
No, I can't imagine it's not. Like I say, I only use GarageBand a bit in it. If it ain't Anders, I'm stumped, I tell you. So
same thing as when I heard Aiwass for the first time, I had no idea it was programmed drums. Same with this album, I didn't know. And I up until you answered that question, had the same question. There's some pretty big drums in there.
Someone said that the programmed drums give it sort of like a Godflesh kind of vibe, which
you hear that?
Yeah. So, and again, it's like I always think it's amazing what influences people hear, because I might message him and say, "Oh, someone said this," and he's like, "Never even heard of them." So I always think it's interesting what people think they hear in music when often you've never actually heard that band. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was it? Chris and I were talking last night about, was it Smoke and Sorcery that we were talking about?
Yep.
And we arrived on kind of a consensus that it was a mixture of CCR and Tool.
I learned that actually, and remind me of Tool.
Has a Tool, but it also has kind of a like almost a country flavor to it. I know I played it for 3 or 4 people, and they're always like, "Oh, it's just a country song," and I'm like, "It's not country, but it has a twang to it."
So to me, that reminds me of "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd. To me, it's got that kind of, I don't know, it's just something with that sort of repeat guitar bit, like on "Wish You Were Here." So yeah, but again, what people hear, people hear country or whatever. It's like Magic Mama. T-Rex, isn't it? It's as simple as that.
100% T-Rex.
T-Rex, yeah, there you go. That's good.
Yeah, 100%. And he's a massive T-Rex fan. But Smoke and Sorcery, I remember when he, I remember when he sent me the demo of that. It was just him playing an acoustic guitar, singing, and he just sent it to me as a WhatsApp message. And that was one of the early tracks he sent me. And I thought, fucking hell, if this is the stuff he's writing, you know, this album is going to be ace, because it was just, for me, it's such a simple song, but, you know, I wish I could write something that good, you know, and I can't.
Great song.
Yeah, and it's just like such a gorgeous song. It's like, fucking hell. And he's like, oh, I've just come up with this. I was like, brilliant, well done.
Was there anything else that anyone thought it was missing, or he could have improved upon, or was it too ambitious? Was it too artsy? Should he have stuck to one thing or anything like that?
The only thing that trips me up listening to it, I like Magic Mama as a song. I wasn't a fan of it on this album just because it was so upbeat and so happy, and the rest of this album is like at most is like melancholy.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like really upbeat and really happy, and it's a great song. I just don't know how I feel about it yet on this record.
Yeah,
it could have easily been put out as like a standalone single with like another song on it, couldn't it? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
But maybe the melancholy just needs that lift, sort of at some point on it. Otherwise, we'd all be fucking sat there like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is heavy going, isn't it? It's like, hey, Magic Mama, yeah, brilliant. And then we can all get sad after.
We kind of talked about our favorite moments on it, one being Magic Mama or maybe Blood of the Witch, I think maybe I mentioned, but is there any other favorite moments on this thing?
I think Hunting Dracul, if that's how you pronounce it, Dracul. I think that, again, is an amazing track that I'd kind of forgotten about until it kind of came out on Spotify, because I'd kind of avoided listening to it for a while. And then when I listen to it again, I was like, yeah, but every day, every time I listen to it, there's another track that will stand out. And I think that's my favourite one now. And then I'll listen to it again in a couple of days and I'm like, fuck, that one's ace now. And it's like, really does it? It's like you say, it's not settled with me. I've not hammered it like you were saying. I've deliberately not overplayed it, because I still want to sort of get that element of, oh, wow, from it. But, and I still get that off Velvet Magic. I'll listen to that now, and like you, Blake, you've listened to it a million times. But when you've sort of given it a month or two and I go back to it, it's like, yeah, that is a fucking good album. That is, isn't it?
It's a lot of layers. You keep finding something new every time you listen to it. And I think that's what this album is going to have as well. Because I've probably listened to it since it came out, probably 10 times, and each time I'm finding something different. And I gave it about a week, and then I listened to it a couple times again today, and I heard a different album.
And listening to it on headphones as well. I had it on headphones, and again, it's a completely different listen when you sort of sat there listening to it on headphones. But
yeah, I've tried it in several different formats, just because I do the same thing with my own music when I'm going through the process of like approving a mix or whatever. I listen to it on everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, let's find something I don't like. I mean, in fair disclosure, this is probably my album of the year. I think this is almost a perfect record. And just I thought it was fucking brilliant. But I keep finding more and more things in it that I didn't notice before. And even things that at first kind of bothered me. Like, for a while, I wasn't a huge fan of Pussycat in a Woman's Skin. But I realized how necessary that song kind of is, in a way, at least in terms of how I was hearing the album, to creating, like, a flow throughout. So, yeah.
And I know he spent, pure time working on the sequence of tracks. It had to be a certain way because it is, the 4 parts in it. So each track had to kind of work alongside the next one, which I know caused him some frustrations along the way.
I wonder if he had that concept of the 4 parts, the maiden, mistress, mother, matriarch, before writing some of the songs, or if it was like an after, like, here's how I'm going to categorize this album.
Well, from what I know in the conversations I had, it was the concept was thought of very early. So yeah, it was always going to be this kind of concept type thing. It wasn't like he started writing and then he thought, "Ooh, I'll do this." It was like, this is what I'm sort of working towards. He sounds cheesy, but he did put 100% of everything into it. And it must have took it out of him.
Yeah. All right, so we kind of talked about the lyrics, the lyrical themes a little bit, sex and violence and stuff like that. So I want to do something now with.
Where's this going? Sex and violence. What do we have to do in this Fuzz Club?
You're just gonna. It's way more tame than you're expecting. You're just gonna guess the missing lyric here, okay?
All right, that's easy.
All right. I am the blank stain upon the white. I am the hand that touches at night. I am the cum stain. I am the red stain. I am the bed stain. I am the bloody stain.
Red, I'd go with.
Anybody else?
Did you say jizz as one of them?
Well, basically, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been good. That would have been more Velvet Magic, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's red. Yeah.
It is red. All right, next one. Take a pinch of hair from a secret place, transform a blank into a pretty face. Transform an uggo, transform a pube, transform a liar, transform a monster into a pretty face.
Monster.
It is about, even though it's about pubes, I'd say liar.
Yeah, I want to say liar as well. It fits more with the meter of the lines.
Grip my ray sword in fist and use it as my light. I see her fangs flash in the dark. I push my blank into her bite. I push my neck. I push my sword. I push my body. I push my wiener into her bite.
Clearly, it's wiener.
Yeah, it's gotta be, hasn't it? If it's not wiener, I'd say sword.
I think it's A.
No, the body one. Yeah, I don't know. Let's go with wiener.
Neck. I push my neck into her bite.
Close, weren't we?
There's a fight in my veins, fearful light pierced with flame. Open up and blank me again. Hold me down until I repent. Open up and bone me again.
You're sick for these answers, aren't you?
Open up and bone me again. Open up and kill me again. Open up and peg me again. Open up and scorch me again.
Oh dear.
How many tequilas on the rocks did you have when you were coming up with the options?
I'm gonna say scorch.
That's Scorch. Going with scorch.
Yeah, scorch.
It is scorch. All right. Maybe someone will go with peg, but all right, that's fine. Put a new song in my soul, a hymn to worship as my God. She put a new blank in my mouth, a name to call her as my Lord. Again, wiener is an option. She put a new wiener in my mouth. She put a new word in my mouth. She put a new breath mint in my mouth. She put a new song in my mouth.
I'm gonna let the others go with this one.
This is a B.
I mean, I think it's word, but clearly he should have gone with breath mint.
Word. All right. That was that.
Lots of wienerage.
All right. Any final thoughts on In All Her Forms by Devil's Witches? Any final things anybody wants to say about this?
I think like Pat said, I really got that like in all of his stuff, that celebration of sexuality, where it's like it's very sexual and it's it's got the porn stuff going on, but it's done with a reverence, like a respect, which I really appreciate and dig. It's more than just the surface level of tits and ass, even though that's wicked. So, I really like that.
Yeah, someone asked me to describe the new album, and I kind of said, well, imagine if Velvet Magic is like a spotty teenager sat in his bedroom whacking off over jazz mags. I said, the new album is very much, a guy actually out seeing and kissing real women. It's such a contrast from just some. Not saying that Devil's Witches sat in his room whacking off over jazz mags, but there's every possibility of that. But it's a more mature listen, I say.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder too. Like I've noticed, I work with a lot of women and a lot of younger women, and I noticed also this trend online where it's this sex positive thing where they're kind of taking back, you know, the pinup thing, and it's like, yeah, we're proud of our asses and tits, and we're going to show it to you. And I kind of wondered if it was like a commentary a little bit about that. And
Could be.
also,
I mean,
I appreciate it as well.
Yeah, I think that's how I interpret the end of Maiden and all of Mistress, is sort of that transformation and like reclaiming of self and like that power.
Also wanted to say to you that the production and the kind of, even though the songs are so different individually in a lot of ways, the production really unifies it in a great way where I feel like I'm watching a film, kind of like the last album we reviewed with the Electric Wizard one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching a mind movie again, and I think a lot of it has to do with that sheen that the production has and how it unifies everything, which I really do.
Was it the guy from Monolord, wasn't it, who did?
yeah, Espen engineered it.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
lot more. It's a completely different kind of production than Velvet Magic as well, isn't it? It's a lot sharper. I think it is, and it's a lot
Cleaner.
Yeah, a lot cleaner.
Would anyone
Yeah,
like to
it's a lot
offer?
bigger sound.
Would anyone like to offer a rating on this? We did this for the first couple episodes, but we kind of got away from it for a while. Like I said, I know I've seen it on a lot of people's year-end lists. So would anyone like to give it a rating? Maybe 1 out of 10 or something? How would you rank this one?
34.
34 out of 10.
That's pretty perfect album in my opinion, and definitely at the top of my albums of the last several years, I'd say. It's not very often where you throw an album on and you want to keep going back to it and going back to it, even though there's so much other stuff available. It's like this one keeps drawing you back, and yeah, so it'd be hard to put a number on it, other than if I could say if I wrote anything similar to it, I'd be very happy with myself.
Yeah. Same here. You could say 10 out of 10, but I just think, for me as a fan of Devil's Witches, it's everything that I'd kind of could have hoped for in an album, really. So, and I can't wait to sort of listen to it more and more and fall as heavily in love with it as I did with Velvet Magic, sort of thing. I think it'd be an album I go back to for many, many years to come, as any good album, great album should. They shouldn't it, really? So.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, let's wrap this thing up. Let's tell everybody, go around and tell what you're up to and plug anything you want, and we'll wrap this episode up. Pat, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, there's always new stuff over at Monster Riff. We just started doing a satire column. Ryan kicked off the first album, or the first story on that. So come to Monster Riff for your news and your satire now.
Andy, what are you up to? I saw that you have your third in the trilogy come out on vinyl finally.
Yes, finally. I Am the King, the third part of the Wild Night trilogy, is out via Majestic Mountain Records and via our own label. I'm also doing bass for a band called Jimmy Damage. I've just done 2 tracks with Wild Fuzz Trip. I've just done a track for Jean Rocher and the Echo. So yeah, busy bassing.
Sweet. Kris?
We got our vinyl coming out in a couple weeks or month or so, I guess now. So if there's anyone that wants to do a pre-order, there's still some available. And we got a lot of news I can't really talk in detail about, but lots of cool stuff on the horizon. We recently become a 3-piece. So we're now bass, guitar, vocals, and drums. So there'll be some changes in our sound live, especially, but I'm looking forward to the more open sound and a bit more space on the guitar. So
Cool.
I'll see how that goes.
Eddy?
Most Opium Church are slowing down on the live shows for a bit, so we're going to focus on the album a bit more and get that dialed in. The Aiwass is getting back to jam. We had a little break there for a little bit, and So things will be picking up there, and I'm doing some of my own stuff, like kind of like soulish stuff, like the weird tunings on the acoustics, and I'll be putting that stuff out there pretty soon too.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that on the after hours, so we'll get into that in a few minutes. Blake?
Mixing and mastering is almost done. Should be ready sometime in December, and then I will have news about a release date. Hopefully, not long after that. And just the walls are blank because I'm getting ready to move back to Texas. So excited about that.
All right, cool. Everybody go check out In All Her Forms by Devil's Witches, and we'll catch you on the after hours. Later.